All right, good afternoon. I'm Chris Luecke, host of the podcast Manufacturing Happy Hour, joined by my co-host Jake Hall, the Manufacturing Millennial. We continue to roll through Automate Live here on day 2 of Automate 2023, and we are joined by Tony Karew, Robotics Portfolio Manager at Dassault Systèmes DELMIA.
Correct.
Which I'm interested to know. I'm familiar with Dassault, but I don't know as much about DELMIA. I imagine some of our audience is learning about them for the first time as well. So can you describe them a little bit, what your specific group does?
Okay, so DELMIA is one of the brands of software underneath Dassault Systèmes, and we are the manufacturing brand. We basically help corporations with the design and the execution and the operations of their manufacturing processes.
And one of my questions is, we were talking outside the studio around some of the specific areas that you're helping with, right? You're doing robot simulation, you're making offline programming a reality. So paint the picture of the current state of this in the industry, and then we'll get into more like the benefits after that.
Okay, yeah, sure. So robot simulation isn't new, but it's a way that enables manufacturers to take their dreams and make them into realities.
Yeah.
In other words, being able to take the design of a product that you want to bring to market and be able to design the manufacturing process around it all concurrently so that you can bring that into execution. And so that's where the offline programming comes in. So when you have a concept of a product, you have to conceptualize what that manufacturing system is going to be like. Once you conceptualize that process and that system, and you know what facility you're going to deploy it in, you can more easily bring that into reality through that digital twin or that virtual model of that manufacturing system, okay? So that's like one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is also if you're already manufacturing system. If you're already manufacturing something on a system and you want to take that and fully utilize that or make it more flexible or introduce a new product onto that flexible automation, we allow you to conceptualize what that new manufacturing process is going to be like on that new product.
What I love about what you're talking about when I think of offline programming or simulation, it's the time to market, time to deployment. When you look at how manufacturing companies a lot of times are successful, we talked about this in an earlier conversation, it's not how big you are, it's how fast you are to deploy.
Yes.
And I think the one thing that really excites me about solutions like this is, I worked at a custom machine builder for a long time, and there was a certain process of how you went from deploying, right? You did the sales process, then you went into the initial design, then you went into the SolidWorks deployment, then you had it programmed and wired up, and then finally, after weeks and weeks and weeks, the robot programmer could finally start working on it.
Right.
But now, when you look at a digital twin, when you look at this simulation, this digitalization of what hardware manufacturing is, you can kind of begin to start before, you could even start before the quoting process when it comes to this type of deployment and testing and really supporting manufacturers from an end user, but also from an integrator perspective.
Absolutely.
On how they can do that. Can you explain more? What are other value propositions behind that offering?
Okay. Yeah, sure. So besides leveraging all that work you've done on the engineering of your products or your manufacturing resources, the other thing is that, in today's world in robotics, more and more companies are coming on board with automation and robotics, and they use integrators a lot, and the integrators use robot simulation and offline programming all the time. The smaller and medium-sized businesses, maybe not so much, but they might pay an integrator to come and integrate that system to manufacture for them. So they're responsible to run it, and they're paying the money, but they might not know how to program it or how to reprogram it. They won't know entirely how that system actually operates. And so they might not have full ownership of that system, because they're purchasing the system and they can run the system, but they don't know how to engineer or re-engineer that system. They may not know how to take that system from step A and then bring it into product B or product C or product D, or how to enhance the production of it.
I love that ownership of the system, and you're really speaking to me here because from working in that, a lot of times where I see a lot of failure happening when leveraging automation, putting in new technology, is the end user never really takes full ownership of the process.
Right.
And that's why a lot of times fail, because if you never take full ownership, there's always that risk from either your customer not fully investing into it, make it successful, or they're tied so much to the integrator that they can't really have their horse unleashed for future growth. And the other thing that really excited me about was the digital twin aspect of that as well. Can you talk a little bit more about the impact that you're seeing the digital twin market impacting on manufacturing? Because I think it's one of those things that we talk about it, but it's still very underutilized.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is adoption. It makes it easier for companies of all sizes to adopt technology. It allows them to, like I was saying, to own that automation and to actually work with it and then replicate it across their enterprise and grow with them.
General question, you've talked to a little bit of this, but I'm curious, what do people struggle with the most when it comes to robotics and, getting into an area where you can help them?
I think it's being familiarized with the technology. It's not really a socialized kind of a technology. Not everybody knows how all the pieces fit together. They don't know how to do this. They don't know how the simulation actually fits in from the engineering office standpoint. How does this robot simulation package, how does it work with my CAD, and how does it work with all my CAD models, and when I update things, does this work the same way? Absolutely it does. When you're in the engineering side of the house, it's all working together and collaborating engineer to engineer, whether you're engineering a process, a resource, or a product. And then when you're down on the manufacturing floor, it's the same thing, because it allows them to implement the actual designs that the engineers came up with, but it enables them to adopt the robot system and the automation more easily, because they're familiar with it before it was even built. They can see the design and they can actually have input into the design of that, how that robot is laid out, how the cell's laid out, how the robot's programmed, how the machines are interacting with each other, how the safeties are positioned, where the cameras are, whatever it is. And so it's more inclusive across the company, and it makes it for an easier adoption of that technology, because they know it's not being thrown at them, they're being included and they're part of that process, and they see it before it actually comes into fruition.
I love that, and I think, maybe there's a quote out there, maybe there's not, but in order to integrate technology successfully, you have to create a culture that's willing to adopt it.
Absolutely.
When I think of this type of technology, I think it's a branch to bring in a younger workforce, to bring in millennials and Gen Zs who are digital natives, who might not want to necessarily do things the way they've been done, and grow up on a digital platform that they're much more comfortable with. What are some, if you can share a case study or a story around how this has brought in a new generation of workers into the industry as a result of this technology? I'd love for you to kind of hit on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So certainly at the smaller company level, when they're implementing robots on their production floor and they're using robot simulation like DELMIA to do it, they have that digital model, and the young generation grabs hold of that. They're attracted to it. They want to know more. When they see it, when they come by our booth, they see that and they want to know what it is. They're attracted to it because that's their lifestyle. The gamification of it all is really attractive to them. And so when I was working at a company, and a lot of the people who were running the production were very familiar with machining and how machine centers work, but they didn't know how robots work. Yeah. And so they were implementing their first robot, and a lot of people were against it, not because they didn't want it to happen, but they weren't familiar with it at all. And so it was kind of like passing the buck. So some guys were, didn't want to have too much to do with it because they were afraid that, they didn't want to get caught with their hand in the fire, right? But it's so interesting because, the younger guys look at it and they go, "That's just so cool. I want to have something
Well,
to
they
do
get
with that."
excited about it. They almost feel like an impact and a purpose
Right.
by being able to touch that they might not have been able to do otherwise.
And not only that, but it's the whole virtual to reality thing that we're bringing, into reality from something that was a concept, and they saw it on a computer tube, on a computer screen, and they're looking at it and they're going, "That's cool." But then when they see the real system, they start working with the real robot and downloading the program, they're like, "Now I get it. This is cool. It's awesome, and it works."
So
and they want to do it again.
The generation conversation is always a good segue into this one, and that's, Tony, if you're looking into a crystal ball, what are your predictions for this industry? Maybe be as specific as simulation or talking as general as you like. What's your prediction for this industry 1 to 2 years down the line?
I think it's really socialization of the technology. I think it's just more people getting on board, more companies utilizing it, because in today's environment, because we're in a post-COVID world, we don't have all the people signing up for jobs with all the skills that they need to perform these types of jobs. And so I see it becoming more and more prevalent in industry because companies don't see it as something that they would like to do or a nice thing to have, but they see it as it's a must-have. I'm localizing all my supply chain. I have to localize my talent.
Yeah.
I have to own my IP of my automation.
Yes.
And I have to own all that stuff, and this is a way to do it. Because I can not only own it all, but I can also commonize it. I can standardize on everything I'm doing in multiple facilities, all in one place. I can decide what works and what doesn't, and I can implement the good ideas and stay away from the bad ones.
So we've had a journey of a conversation today, from emerging technologies to getting the future workforce involved to the future outlook of what our industry is going to be.
Yep.
If there's anything else that we want to cover, Tony, is there any other topics or takeaways that you want the audience to walk away with on either solutions that you guys are bringing to the industry or better practices that we could be bringing as a whole?
Well, it's a good question, but I think that one of the things that I'm taking away the more I go to these trade shows, especially being here at Automate, one of the things is that you never know where the conversation's coming from. Because some people are interested in robot simulation, some are interested in virtual validation, some are interested in how they connect the engineering office to the execution of the robot. Some people want to know how the production side gets connected to the engineering side. But I think that the key is that you never know where the question is going to come from, because it could be someone in a huge industry, in a huge company, or it could be a mom and pop shop, across town. But I think that the idea is that, these types of technologies are being implemented everywhere. You never know where it's going to come from. It could be at a small company or it could be at a big manufacturer. So all this technology is proliferating throughout every industry.
I saw an ad on LinkedIn not too long ago hit my feed for Dassault Systèmes DELMIA, and I'm curious, one more final plug for your company, because the ad said something along the lines of, you can go from implementation of one work cell to many.
Yep.
So I'm curious if you can one final plug before we wrap up.
Yeah, absolutely. To help you to capitalize on what you're doing well, and then to replicate that. Being able to own that work cell, truly own it, not just from a monetary standpoint, but from an intellectual standpoint. And then being able to learn from it and implement it over and over again across your factories.
Yeah.
Own it.
Awesome.
Own it. That's the theme
I
of
love
the
it.
interview, I feel
And
like.
so that's how DELMIA makes it happen.
Excellent. Well, hey, Tony, we appreciate you taking the time to jump on the show. For everyone out there watching Automate Live, we'll be back with another interview very shortly.
We'll see you soon.